I just honestly didn't think the president was fucking Satan, but now knowing that he has been this whole time, I'm just so happy.
The focus is on Kid Rock, once proclaimed the bad boy of the rock scene, now turned by screenwriters into a caricature of a fanatic, ready to endure any humiliation for the sake of loyalty to his idol. In the episode, he doesn't just cry on television. He proudly accepts the absurdity of what is happening, ready to become a laughingstock, because blind faith gives him a sense of belonging and meaning. This metaphor is much more expansive than a joke about a single celebrity. It reflects the state of a society where emotional attachment to the image of a leader replaces critical thinking and personal responsibility. South Park's humorous approach here is multi-layered. On the one hand, it is a ruthless parody of television drama. Experts on posturing, commentators who mistake their desires for reality, and an enthusiastic audience that accepts any explanation as proof of victory. On the other hand, it is social criticism. How much the media and fan culture are capable of transforming scandal into triumph and moral failures into symbols of power. The show skillfully shows how easy it is to manipulate public perception by framing events in a convenient narrative framework that is beneficial to those who control public attention. The narrative in the episode is more than just parody. It masterfully weaves real fears and outrage into the plot. The devilish storyline is not just a means of shock value. It is an allegory of radicalization and complete denial of doubt. When the cult of personality reaches the stage of irrationality, any fact can be twisted to serve the needs of the idol. The symbolic conception becomes the final provocation, not for the sake of shock value, but as an image of how idolization can give rise to the most absurd and dangerous consequences. The authors pay special attention to the role of the media. It is in them that the power to turn disgrace into victory is concentrated. In the episode, Fox News acts not as a critic, but as a kind of accomplice. Instead of exposing the mania, there is applause. Instead of questions, there are excuses. This is a serious attack on those news outlets that systematically turned failures into relativized victories, presenting controversial facts as a triumphant story. South Park uses laughter as a mirror. It shows that by controlling the framework of the discussion, any absurdity can be turned into a symbol of success. In the revised text, I have strengthened the analytical component. Now it is not just a retelling of scenes, but an attempt to understand the mechanisms that made such a farce possible. Kid Rock as a character is used not only for ridicule. He is a catalyst for the theme, a living example of how a personality is turned into a political accessory and a brand that trades in loyalty. His hysterical confessions on television are no longer a curiosity, but a symptom of a cultural disease in which media image is valued above real creativity or moral position. At the same time, South Park does not forget about the real consequences of political spectacles. The parallel storyline with tariffs and a shortage of cheap toys, a simple, everyday detail, reminds us that behind all the theatrical gestures of the authorities are ordinary people who are forced to pay for the distracting show. This is a clever technique, combining grotesque parody with a mundane social problem to show how diverting attention from real issues turns the public agenda into a farce and worsens the lives of those who are left without a voice. Jokes and caricatures here are a tool, not an end in themselves. They help to show that politics often becomes a spectacle where impressions are more important than truth. The irony directed at fans and the media is aimed not so much at their senselessness as at the mechanism of substitution. How flashy headlines, emotional speeches, and the fabrication of meaning supplant substance and undermine responsibility. This episode is a warning. If society continues to value spectacle over facts, it risks losing its ability to respond adequately to real challenges. Now let's move on to the main scenes and symbols. What really works in the episode and why it leaves such an impression. The first thing to note is the scenes with Kid Rock and their editing. The creators deliberately emphasize the contrast, close-ups of a crying face, pompous inserts of expert commentary, and panoramic shots showing the jubilant studio environment. This editing turns personal hysteria into a mass spectacle, transforming a private episode into a public event. Visual hyperbole, when one person in the frame becomes a symbol of a mass phenomenon, works as an instant marker. The viewer understands that what is happening here is not only with a specific character, but with an entire culture. The dialogues in the episode are another important tool. They do not so much reveal new facts as expose the logic of worship. Short, repetitive phrases, fragmentary confessions, avoidance of specifics in favor of emotional declarations. It is precisely this lexical set, "I love him, I'm happy, he did it for us," that turns the scene into a textbook on the mechanics of cults. In real life, such phrases serve as the glue for group identity. In satire, they seem absurd and frightening at the same time. The image of Satan and his pregnancy is, of course, deliberate hyperbole, but its meaning is more important than the shock value. It is a visual and semantic symbol of the absurd consequences of idealizing a person. Pregnancy as a metaphor, the birth of something new from the union of power and fanaticism, heightens the anxiety. The show seems to say that such a union can give rise to an entire culture that breeds aberrations and normalizes them. This symbol is not just funny. It is disturbing because it offers a concrete image of future problems. The parallel storyline with Butters is a masterful move by the writers. While demonic melodramas and political circuses rage on screen, real everyday problems still affect the other characters. Toys are becoming more expensive, parents are cutting back on spending, and children are deprived of their usual joys. This counterpoint shows that even the most high-profile political scandals do not override economic laws and social consequences. In one storyline, there is farce and satire. In the other, there is real life. Their combination makes the episode not just funny, but socially significant. South Park's humor is not just absurdity and trolling. It is a tool for dissection. The creators take the cliches of the media age, body language experts, insinuations as fact, turning scandal into celebration, and make them look downright ridiculous. This allows the audience to begin to notice the familiar techniques of manipulation that go unnoticed in everyday life. Laughter acts as active criticism. It not only entertains, but also teaches us to pay attention to how meaning is created. The work with the viewer is particularly interesting. The show makes us laugh and feel slightly uncomfortable at the same time. This is important. If the episode were only funny, it would remain a light caricature. If it were only harsh criticism, it could be off-putting. The combination of laughter and discomfort is the ideal formula for satire, which stays in your head and makes you rethink your own behavior and attitude towards the media. Finally, the social conclusion of the episode is not just a reproach directed at specific figures. It is broader. It is a warning about how society can lose critical thinking by succumbing to the emotional appeal of leaders and ideologies. South Park shows that the problem is not with individual celebrities or individual news stories, but with the general mechanism, the substitution of facts with emotion, the replacement of discussion with a ritual of worship. And this is dangerous because rational decisions and healthy public discussion are impossible in such conditions. What practical lessons can be learned from this episode? First, learn to recognize the techniques of rhetoric and media manipulation. Repetition of phrases appeals to emotions and the heroization of individuals. Second, understand that laughter and criticism are effective, but require additional work: discussion, analysis of sources, and fact-checking. South Park's humor is the beginning of a conversation that must be continued not with jokes, but with real actions and informed choices. In conclusion, the episode is a successful attempt to both entertain and shake up the viewer. It shows that satire can play the role of a social detector, pointing out where reason ends and blind faith begins. Kid Rock in this story is just a marker, but the criticism itself is aimed at a much broader phenomenon. And as long as society remains inattentive to the mechanisms of meaning production, such farces will continue to repeat themselves. This episode is an invitation not only to laugh, but also to think, what do we really want from our leaders, and who are we willing to call role models? The humor of South Park in this episode is not an end in itself. It acts as a diagnostic tool. It shows where public thinking breaks down under the pressure of emotions, media narratives, and the cult of personality. The main idea is that absurdity, whatever form it takes, ceases to be mere satire when the media and fans turn it into a new norm. The episode is a reminder that laughter must be accompanied by reflection. We laugh, then we check the facts and think.